This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and a very warm welcome to the new and welcoming Forecast Friday for you here on the Daily English Premier League podcast, brought to you by GSPN. I am joined today by the one and only Liverpool legend, Liverpool lover. It is Louie Eaton, everybody.
Easton, thank you very much.
Sorry, pal.
It was the disrespect thrown in there after congratulating me for being a Liverpool legend. Thank you very much for that warm welcome.
And it's a Friday where we look ahead at record-breaking weekends. We have got the biggest domestic trophy in the Premier League season up for grabs between Manchester City and Crystal Palace. It's the FA Cup final, which we'll be covering in detail very shortly. We have Europa League finalists in place on Friday night, and we will be touching on both of those teams and the place and the challenges that throw us into the European top spot. Who will clinch that desired position at the end of this Premier League season remains unknown, but hopefully Louis will help us, guide us to an understanding of who might grab those or clinch those last places. So let's dive into it, Louis. This weekend obviously brings us a fantastic opportunity of watching Crystal Palace, hopefully, beating Man City in the FA Cup final.
Yeah.
And what a weekend for it. It's set to be fantastic weather. It's a day for both fans to get out. Man City fans will be definitely used to this situation. Crystal Palace fans will definitely not. Where do you feel that this game is going to win? I have got a little stat about Crystal Palace where I think that what might benefit them, but I do know that set pieces this year stand out for Crystal Palace as a team as one of the most converted in the Premier League.
It's a very difficult game to predict in terms of what's going to happen because we saw in the Aston Villa semi-final for Crystal Palace that some of their goals were just class attacks. Eberechi Eze was on fire, and it kind of depends on how Manchester City defend against him. Are they going to have two players on him the entire game? Where will Jean-Philippe Mateta fit into the 90 minutes? It'll be interesting to see. Let's just say that. And for Crystal Palace, it's such a big occasion as well. So you can expect these players to be running a lot more in this FA Cup final at Wembley Stadium. It's a much bigger pitch than the one at Selhurst Park. It's just little differences like that make the occasion a lot greater. But what I will say for Manchester City, they've been here before. Pep Guardiola's been here before. I think he said on record that this is his favourite competition. So you can expect Manchester City to really set up well for this one. What their formation will be, what their starting 11 will be, we're yet to see. Obviously, Man City obsessed with rotation. I can't wait for it, Mikey. I can't wait for it. As a South Londoner myself, I am so excited to see this.
Yeah, and obviously Pep Guardiola is going to set up to dominate the possession, I would assume, and Crystal Palace will be playing on the counter. And I touched on it a minute ago, and you've got incredible players with a fantastic delivery at Crystal Palace. They're joint top of converting set pieces, excluding penalties this season, joint with Nottingham Forest and Arsenal. 11 of those goals have come from corners. And Palace have also scored four free kicks and one throw-in. You've got Wharton, Eze and Hughes all providing quality deliveries. And it's obviously a record that will not surprise Guardiola. Obviously Crystal Palace scored from corners against City in both league games this season as well. It's something that Man City will have to manage, and I think there will be no lack of Man City going forward, but they're going to have to try and control, as you say, this which is obviously a huge plus for Crystal Palace going into the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it will be probably quite a direct play from Crystal Palace. They like to play quite directly. Even though they do have 3 centre-backs, don't let that fool you, because you see players like Ismail Assar, who's got 7 goals this season in the Premier League, believe it or not, and 5 assists. He loves to be direct. He is so quick as well. And when you have quick wingers like that sprinting at you, they're very hard to defend against, especially Ismail Assar is a player that likes to dribble as well. One thing I will say about Wharton, however, he didn't play in the last match. They had a midfield of Jefferson Lerma and Will Hughes, both terrific players, as you mentioned, like to get a nice delivery in. And Will Hughes is just one of those players that have been at Crystal Palace for a long time, knows the club inside out, and has almost been quite underrated in his time there, because he's been consistently one of their best midfielders for years in different squads. So he's quite versatile, but this is definitely going to be the biggest match of his career so far as well.
Yeah, and just on tactically how they set up, naturally, Palace set up with a 3-4-2-1, which keeps them quite narrow. And if you remember the equaliser by Rico Lewis in the home fixture for Crystal Palace, it was exploited because City played wide with wing backs, and it drew out the fullbacks for Crystal Palace, which I think exploited them. And as you've already alluded to, Wembley is such a bigger pitch, and if City can exploit the wings at Wembley, it might put Crystal Palace in an uncomfortable position defensively.
Yeah, but then you've got such great defenders in that Crystal Palace side. I mean, Chris Richards, what a season he's having. I think fans of football, especially our American viewers, will know that Chris Richards has been one of these prospects for quite a while. He was decent for, I think it was Wolfsburg he was with in Germany before he went to Palace. It might have been a different club. I could be wrong. But we're starting to see the best of him come out now, because he's a very quick centre-back as well. He's able to track back. But occupying Erling Haaland does require a very compact defence, and I think that's where having 3 centre-backs covering Dean Henderson will come to advantage for Crystal Palace. I'm so excited as a South Londoner for this match. I can't tell you. I don't want to go too far off topics from tactics, but honestly, living in South London, you really feel that this is like the community coming together, because this is the biggest club by some distance in South London. And driving through South London, you're seeing all of the Crystal Palace Eagles flags back up, driving through Croydon near where they play. It's like 2016 again. Obviously, that's a final you'll remember as a Manchester United fan, because they played against you and lost in that final. Third time lucky, maybe, for Crystal Palace.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, I really hope so. I think just the last one to touch on before we move on from this final is the role that Kevin De Bruyne might play on Saturday. There's like heavy links that he's going out the club. Well, we know he's going out the club, but we don't know where his career is going to land. There's been discussion about Napoli. There's been a lot of talk about where he might be going. There's a good chance that he'll play just behind in that number 10 role, which I actually think he's most effective nowadays, because they're not relying on his engine in the middle of the pitch, and he's most effective, I think, in those positions because his delivery and weight of pass is just phenomenal. There's a chance he'll have Omar Mamouche in front of him or Haaland. For someone like that, I think it's very hard for Crystal Palace to set up and stop his impression. How do you think he will affect Saturday's fixture?
Well, I just think if De Bruyne gets the ball on the edge of the box, it's always a threat. No matter where he's playing, no matter what part of his career he is. When you've got someone who can deliver a ball into the box or hit a ball that hard, you always have to keep an eye on him, and they just can't afford to give him too much space in midfield or in that channel just outside of the box. Even this season, yes, he hasn't been too prolific, only 4 goals in the Premier League, but when you have someone with that amount of class, I mean, you're talking an all-time great in the Premier League. You don't need to worry about form because you can trust someone like De Bruyne, a captain, someone who has been through everything with Manchester City. You just cannot give him space at all because he can affect games. And, well, I'll be interested to see if he plays the full 90. I personally can't see it. I can see him coming off in the 60th minute, but definitely one to keep an eye out on. The one I'm interested to see is Phil Foden, if he can come alive in this sort of atmosphere and turn that bad fortune around at a time where his club need him most. This is their only chance at a trophy this season, Manchester City.
Yeah, and as Erling Haaland's come out and said this week, this game is pivotal to their season from being an absolute disaster. Both teams coming in off interesting results as well, just to wrap up this section. Crystal Palace obviously both teams had one eye on this fixture going into the last Premier League game. Crystal Palace managed to beat Spurs away from home with 2-0. Whereas there was a shock 0-0 for Man City against bottom of the league Southampton. Maybe it was looking after players and thinking about how they should be. But here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we consider looking after you. And that's why we chose Bioniq.
Your body is unique. And Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Yeah, make sure you do check out Bioniq. And we are going to dive into the Friday games and a touch on the Europa League final. First, I'm going to come to you, Louie. We've got Villa against Spurs, and Spurs are plagued with injuries to really influential players that will be heavily missed if they aren't fit for Wednesday's final. They're playing Villa, who are in a fighting chance of getting Champions League football next year, providing they get the right results going their way over the next 2 games.
Yeah, I think this is a very, very good time for them to play against Spurs as well. They have 2 1-0 victories in a row, Aston Villa, so I think this is another game for Onana to really come alive against a Spurs midfield that is lacking in depth, to say the least. We've just heard Kulusevski's going to be out, not just for this match, but also for the Europa League final, alongside James Maddison, alongside Lucas Bergvall. And when you look at that Villa midfield, you just can't see anything apart from an Aston Villa win.
I mean, Villa are coming into this game of wins against teams in and around that area, like tough games. Bournemouth away from home, and then they played Fulham, and they've managed to keep clean sheets. Prior to that, they lost to the FA Cup finalists, Palace and City, respectively, but then defeated Newcastle, who have had a fantastic storm towards the end of the season, putting themselves well within reach of Champions League football. I do agree with you. I think it comes at a very great opportunity for a great time and an opportunity for Aston Villa to play Spurs. And you can't help look past the fact that there are so many injuries, and Spurs will be heavily relying on Wednesday being a success. Kulusevski say it again for me.
Kulusevski.
Thank you. His injury as a phenomenal player for them this season is going to put a huge doubt on the Wednesday fixture. and make life for Man United, I think, a little bit easier. The fact that he's not playing. Let's just jump onto the United and Chelsea game quickly. Chelsea again, well within reach of getting Champions League football. Joint with Man City on points. They've got a chance to jump above them and Newcastle respectively if results go their way. They're playing against a Man United side who will definitely be weakened, if that's such a thing at the minute for Man United. However, one thing I wanted to mention about this was something that's come out of Man United about the staff and how they are supporting staff for the Europa final, and it's saying that the club won't pay for extended staff members to attend Bilbao on Wednesday. And Ruben Amorim has actually funded that for them and two members of the family to attend and stay over, which in two ways is fantastic by him. But what a shambles this club is. I mean, I have alluded to it on the pod before, but the magnitude of financially of not winning this European Cup is like devastating. Sponsorships, there's just it's dramatic to what will affect the club if they don't win on Wednesday. But it's just a shambles. It must be quite nice as a Liverpool fan looking in on Man United at the minute.
Well, no, because for the staff to not be allowed to go, that's not nice for any club. And I mean, I enjoy everything on the pitch. Absolutely love seeing Manchester United right by the relegation zone. However, I think when they're firing dinner ladies, putting wage cuts on stewards, and not inviting extended staff to major cup finals, I think that's I just don't I don't like that at all, because these are people who shouldn't be suffering for the club. They're working, and football is a working class sport historically as well. This is the game of the people. There's no class in this, but it just seems like we're moving further and further away from that, for greed and for negligence, in my opinion, as well. If you want to speak about the game, I'm more than happy to do that, because one thing that I will say about Amorim, as annoyed as I am for him rejecting Liverpool and going to Manchester United halfway through the season after saying that he'd stay at Sporting, just hypocrisy. I'm very impressed with his character to lend a hand to those extended staff members, and I was very impressed with his reaction to the loss against West Ham United last week. 2-0 defeat at home. He was very upset with his team, and he doesn't want to focus solely on the Europa League Cup final. He also wants to involve the Premier League in his thinking, regardless of the fact that they can't win anything or qualify for Europe this season. I'm amazed that he loves taking every game as an individual game rather than thinking contextually about it.
Yeah, and as a final, I mean, it promises to be probably, I mean, this is coming from a United fan, one of the worst finals or Europa League finals for a very, very long time. Two very underwhelming sides. And I actually haven't looked up the stats on this, but I can imagine, I can't imagine that there's ever been a final that consists of two teams that finish in lower positions than these two.
Yeah, it's astounding, absolutely astounding. But I think you look at it from a negative side. I see it as a very positive thing, especially for English football, because everyone says that this is a very boring Premier League season. And, as a Liverpool fan, everyone's telling us that we had it easy. But, for two English clubs who are vastly underperforming, to reach the Europa League final is absolutely fantastic. And you can't take credit away from Manchester United getting to this final. And the fashion in which they got there was unlike anything I've seen from Manchester United since probably 1999. And it's great. I'm obviously rooting heavily for Spurs. We'll talk about that later. But I think this is very, very contested. Such a competitive final for two clubs that heavily rely on this final to get anything out of this season at all. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I do agree with you. And it remains to be seen, I guess, really. We are going to find out. I mean, Villa have got a chance and Chelsea both to put pressure on. They could remain on the same points if they both win, which they're expected to do this weekend or tonight, as this comes out today on Friday. So they both could go into the final weekend on 66 points. And it just makes for a really exciting last day. Fans in the crowd, looking at the phones, hearing results and goals go in. I can imagine that next weekend is going to be a really exciting finish for a lot of these teams in and around the Champions League European spots. We here at the Global Sports Podcast Network choose Zencastr as our podcasting platform, and here's why.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out as the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone, AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the description to learn more about Zencastr.
Check it out. We have got so many podcasts that go out on a daily basis, including every team in the Premier League, teams that are coming up, Champions League football, fantasy football, women's football, the absolute lot. And talking of women's football, we are going to go to our first game on Sunday afternoon, which is Everton against Southampton. A hell of a drive or journey for the Southampton fans who are coming in off a 0-0 draw, as we've just said, against Man City. And as I've mentioned, women's football is getting a push in the right direction.
Yeah.
And Louie, I'm not going to take over what you've told me about this. Talk to us about Goodison Park.
I think it takes the sting out of it because we were all worried about the future of Goodison Park after this weekend. It will still be an incredibly emotional day for Everton fans. An absolute pain in the neck for Southampton fans to get up for a 12 o'clock kickoff. It's a long, long way from Hampshire to Merseyside, but it's fantastic for women's football. A real boost to have such an iconic football venue in the WSL, and hopefully this is the first of many stadiums that will be given to the WSL. I mean, Liverpool women still play their home matches in St Helens or Warrington or somewhere in that area. Not in Liverpool is the point. I think Brighton women play in Crawley and Crystal Palace women play in Sutton. So it's a massive step forward for women's football, and I just hope that there will be games where they can fill that, because can you imagine imagine 10 years ago, someone told you that Everton women will host a game at Goodison Park filled with fans, sold out. It's a brilliant step forward for women's football, and hopefully the first of many.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's an important thing to commemorate Goodison Park as a whole and the longevity. And as you've said, the away day for Southampton fans is a huge one. But I can imagine they will have sold pretty much all of their allocated tickets purely because it's the last game away day in the Premier League for their fans. So I should imagine that should be a very emotional affair for both home and away fans, but especially all Everton fans. Moving on to the 2:15 kickoff, we've got West Ham coming in off I would say, surprise win at Old Trafford, but it's not. They won 2-0 against United quite comfortably, and we've got Nottingham Forest, who have had an outstanding season. They've had on-field dispute between owner and manager. I had a little rant about this on Sunday. I think a lot of perspective has been lost, and I also think it's okay to be upset by it, but there's a way to manage that situation, and it wasn't managed well. And I think that's very unfair on the Nottingham Forest manager. And also that they've done phenomenally well. European football is guaranteed next season. That is a massive plus
Yeah.
for everyone involved with Nottingham Forest. And what an
Hmm.
exciting campaign that'll be for them next season. Regardless of whether it's Champions League football, Europa League football, it doesn't really matter. How do you forecast that game going?
It seems like a win for Forest written all over it. I still just I know they won last week in a somewhat surprising fashion, but it's it's a shambles whenever you actually watch West Ham play. I mean, look, they had some pretty decent performers. I thought Aaron Wan-Bissaka was particularly good for West Ham last week. Um, Forest, however, hitting a little bit of a rough patch. They haven't won in four. They had a draw last week with Leicester, albeit a derby, so Leicester were probably being a bit more energetic in their midfield and that sort of thing. But this is an absolute must-win for Forest if they still want to push for a Champions League spot. And I think that motivation that they'll get from that incentive is enough to probably push for a victory at the London Stadium. And just coming on to your point about Evangelos Marinakis going onto the pitch at the end, did you see he was holding an iPhone 7 in his hand? He's a billionaire owner. He doesn't care what phone he has.
It's nice.
It's just absolutely insane. That was the most that was the biggest takeaway from that. But one thing I will say though, as well for Nottingham Forest is some absolutely fantastic news that Taiwo Awoniyi has been resuscitated after his induced coma earlier this week, which is great news off the pitch, and we wish him well and hope that he gets a full recovery after that horrific injury that we saw.
Yeah, without doubt. And just on what we've said there, if we've said that Nottingham Forest, Chelsea, and Villa will win, it leaves Man City as the other team within this talking point, and Arsenal. We will touch on Arsenal later. Newcastle as well fall into this category. Palace and City will catch up their fixtures on Tuesday night against Wolves and Bournemouth. The guys will pick up that during the week. However, we're going to look forward now to Brentford against Fulham. Fulham and Brentford both playing for the chance of European football. Now, there's a lot of things that have to happen in order for these guys to fall into the category. We were trying to work it out before. That the maths here is a little bit tricky, but it requires the fact that Newcastle have already won the League Cup. Did we clarify that? Opens up another spot for the Conference League, which then means that any of these teams, Brentford, Brighton, Bournemouth, Fulham, would have a chance of getting it. I'm saying Palace aren't, but I mean, if we're including Fulham, why not include Palace as well? It's
I
not
wouldn't include
mathematically
Palace.
possible. Yeah, they can't do it. Fulham at an outside chance. Yeah, they play each other, and they're both coming into it with interesting results going into the game. What are you thinking, Louis?
This is for the Brentford one.
Yeah, Brentford, Fulham.
Well, I just look at this. Fulham have lost 4 of their last 5.
Yeah,
Brentford have won their last 4. I think
yeah.
that kind of says it all, doesn't it? I mean, other than the jeopardy of this being a derby, I can't see a world in which Fulham does anything here. So, and plus Brentford are at home, and we've all spoken about how good Brentford are at home. It's their favourite place to play. So I think that kind of just concludes my prediction, to be honest. I know it's not a very interesting or detailed one, but I just can't see a world in which Fulham leave with anything, especially with the fact that Brentford are the pole sitters for that Conference League spot, assuming that Manchester City beats Crystal Palace.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at the games that you're talking about, yeah, Brentford have won the last 4 games, and they've drawn the last 2 before that. And the size of the teams that they've played, bar Ipswich, were Man United, I mean, equally as bad. Forest, Brighton, Arsenal, and Chelsea. You know, drawing away at Arsenal and drawing to Chelsea at home. these are big results from Brentford, and I completely agree with you. I think
Mm.
they will only bolster their chances of maintaining that spot in eighth place from that game. So let's move on to I mean, we barely need to speak about this. It's not very interesting apart from one fact. We've got Leicester against Ipswich, and coming out of Leicester, the main headline is that it will be Jamie Vardy's last game at the club. And as you said, he wanted to give him an elation of home support as his last game.
Mm. It's a bit of an emotional weekend, isn't it? Because you've got Vardy leaving, and you've got Everton leaving Goodison Park. So I suppose it can be a little bit interesting if you want to look at who finishes 18th and who finishes 19th, because 18th and 19th are facing each other in this game, equal on points. But yeah, very emotional day for Jamie Vardy indeed, the captain of the club. He's got 8 goals this season, with a, for use of less exaggeration, underperforming Leicester City squad this season. But if you look at his records in the Premier League, most goals on the trot out of any player in the Premier League ever during that incredible, historic 2015-16 season where they won the league. Jamie Vardy is a hero of Leicester. He's probably the best player that Leicester City have ever had. He's definitely well worth the conversation. So it will be a very emotional day. He's stuck with Leicester. I remember a couple of years after he won the league with Leicester, there were talks of him going to Arsenal, and he didn't ever have to stay at Leicester because he had so much control over his career and he had every right to be playing for a better club. But he stuck with them, and he is a true footballing personality off the pitch as well. He loves giving it to the away fans and smashing corner flags, all of that sort of thing. He's a legend of the Premier League, and it will be sad to see him go. But I think it is probably the right time for him to be leaving. 38 years old and a great career behind him.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And what a legacy he'll leave, especially as you've alluded to that Premier League winning team, and he was such a key factor in that process. An absolute legend of the Premier League in his own right, really, for personality alone.
It's also going to be his 500th appearance for Leicester, so
wow,
it does make sense.
Yeah, it's done perfectly. We are going to wrap up Sunday's fixtures with a quite incredible situation. Arsenal are not quite over the line in Champions League terms just yet.
My word.
One win in 6 Premier League matches has left Arsenal needing one more point to guarantee a top 5 finish. They've got Southampton next week, but this weekend, in form, firing Newcastle United. If Arsenal somehow don't make Champions League football, it will be an absolute travesty.
Oh, it would be fantastic, though, wouldn't it, Mikey? Oh, that would be so good. I'm amazed. If Newcastle win this game, they will leapfrog Arsenal in points as well.
Crazy.
Who would have thought that this could be possible? I mean, and they could also. Oh no, because Manchester City won't be playing in the Premier League this weekend. But because if you remember the season that we just mentioned when Leicester won the Premier League, Arsenal fans were all taking the mick out of Spurs for finishing third in a 2-horse race. This is what will probably happen to Arsenal. I would like to see them lose to Newcastle, absolutely. This is what happens when you put all of your energy into the Champions League and don't leave any for the Premier League. That is the only logical explanation I could have for Arsenal having such a poor run of matches recently. They weren't. they weren't going to win the Champions League, in my opinion. And that's not a biased opinion. I just think when you've got the quality of Inter, Barcelona, and PSG, that a PSG side that look unbelievable that they were facing over two legs, one in the first leg going down to them and then having to go to their stadium to get anything out of it. I think that's when they should have put a bit more energy into the Premier League, but they just failed to do that, and now they're reaping the consequences for it. And now they're facing a very informed Newcastle, and it just doesn't look very good for them at the moment. One thing I will say for us, for Newcastle, is they have got some vulnerabilities. I mean, we saw recently they got thumped by Aston Villa away from home, but that's another very informed side. So Arsenal need to find something now. We were all saying, well, the reason they're not doing as well is because at different points of the season they didn't have Saka, they didn't have Ødegaard. Now they have both, and they're just not playing that well. So loads and loads of questions for Mikel Arteta if they don't finish second.
Yeah, swings and roundabouts is definitely a term that would be used to describe Arsenal, because bad form and hitting at the wrong time is exactly what's happened. They are winless in the last 4 home matches in all competitions, and they've lost the last 2 in a row. Newcastle, as you've said, can jump in front of them this weekend and go into the last game of the season with a chance to match the Kevin Keegan's entertaining side challenging for the title in 96-97. It's set up to be a phenomenal last weekend in the Premier League if the results go the way that we predict them to go in this forecast. I think we've covered pretty much all games. I did want to just touch on your guys playing on Monday night, which will probably be done in more detail. But yeah, they play Brighton, who are still within that chance of getting Conference League football, joint points with Brentford, playing Liverpool at a time where you've described them off the air as being slightly lacking in form on the pitch.
Yeah, we don't mind though, do we?
No.
It's interesting this, because if you've kept an eye on social media of what the Liverpool players have been doing this week, aside from all of the fuss of Trent being booed and, you know, whether he deserves that or not, Liverpool players are over in Dubai at the moment, and Arne Slot not only hasn't gone with them, but he's gone on his own little holiday to the Balearic Islands, where he is staying in a wonderful villa at Ocean Club, partying on. He had some cheerleading girls holding up signs saying champions. DJs, alcohol was consumed, a pool had been swam in, and this was all a couple of days after drawing with Arsenal. So, it's absolutely bizarre that they're doing this mid-season. But as Liverpool fans who have already had the title wrapped up and we've got our 20th, we don't really mind it. And, you know, we could get thumped 5-0 by Brighton in this game, and, you know, it would help Brighton in their qualification. But at the moment, the most exciting stuff for Liverpool fans is what's happening off the pitch and, you know, these pursuits of players. We've seen Florian Wirtz's name mentioned a couple of times. Now, that is a player that I would kill to have at Liverpool. Also got Jeremy Frimpong, who could be the permanent replacement of Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back, or at least in rotation with Conor Bradley, who's looking incredible. I'm very happy. I'm very relaxed at this time as a Liverpool fan. I just don't want to lose both of our matches by a large margin. That would put a little bit of a dampener on the season. But I'm sure that will all be forgotten on the 26th of May in the streets of Liverpool during that bus parade, which is projecting 2 million people to be there.
Amazing. And another just one to finish on, and quite interesting to get your opinion on, is the fact that Mo Salah is going to be playing, if he plays, his 300th game for Liverpool, and he has a chance to have one of the best seasons of all time in an individual campaign for himself, as breaking the record with the most goal involvements of 47 at the minute, currently held by Andy Cole and Alan Shearer. All he needs is two more. And Brighton are one of his favourite teams to play against. 15 assists and 10 goals against Brighton over his time.
Unbelievable.
And Hursley, as we know, likes to play a formidably attacking game. I think if Salah plays, it'll give chances, and there's a chance definitely that Salah could do not only get his 300th game, but also become an all-time record setter in the Premier League.
Yeah, Brighton are a difficult side to play against, especially for Liverpool. It was weird earlier this season. I still remember that game at Anfield where I think it was Kalajic what's his name? The Turkish fullback for Brighton. It was him that scored the first goal, and Liverpool looked very off boil in that first half, and then the second half it was the usual of Anfield roaring, and then 2 goals in 2 minutes. Salah scoring an absolutely incredible goal in that game. But this time it's at Brighton. It's a long way from Liverpool to Brighton as well. But it's a Monday night kickoff, and that will give the Brighton fans a bit of a boost, having the champions come to town, roaring under the lights of the Amex. And Salah, you just rely on in these sorts of games when you need someone to open up the defence in a bit of an equal game. He can be the difference, and you just can't put it past him. I know that his form recently hasn't been as exceptional as his form has for certainly the first 3 quarters of the season, but you just don't put it past Salah. Plus, he takes penalties, so that's another factor there. There are many factors in which you have to consider when you want Salah to provide either a goal or an assist. And you said he's just 2 off. He's got 120 minutes to do it. Why not? Still,
Absolutely.
And we've got Brighton and Palace as our last 2 games. That's a nice one, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And what a way to forecast a weekend of incredible football. The weekend where we say goodbye to Goodison Park, goodbye to Jamie Vardy, and we get prepared to see what the heck is in order for the final weekend of the Premier League. All will be revealed by Tuesday night, and then next Sunday we will find out the conclusion of the 2025 season. I do apologise for the doorbell going off in my house as we speak. Louis, it's been an absolute privilege. What are the chances? Good night, God bless. Thanks for coming. It's a goodbye for me.
It's Christmas on GSPN once again.
Honest to God.
Cheers,
I'm
Mike.
playing the outro.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.